Welcome to the Asset Protection Show. I'm attorney John Skabelund. Today, I'm going to do something different, and I'm going to get personal with you. I want to talk about something bigger than LLCs, trusts, and taxes. It's about a growing trend in the United States to tax the rich and pile on regulations for business owners and real estate investors. And why, from where I sit, that's a short-term fix, but a long-term disaster.
This is the Asset Protection Show. Expert strategies by attorney John Skabelund.
I'm going to get personal with you. I grew up poor. My father was a school teacher. My mother was a homemaker who didn't even graduate high school. At age 14, my parents divorced. My single mom and two younger brothers and I lived in a single wide trailer in a dumpy part of town. My mother did job training to learn how to be a cashier, and we lived on food stamps. In other words, my family experienced firsthand when money was tight and jobs were scarce. That experience has never left me. It's a big part of why I care so much about what happens to the poor and the middle class. Now, fast forward to today. I'm an asset protection attorney who owns my own law firm employing several people. I recognize, but for the grace of God, I would not be where I am today. Not only am I considered to be firmly in the top 1% to 2% of earners in the United States, but I work with business owners, real estate investors, and high net worth families all over the country. I see two things at the same time. On one side, policymakers who say, we'll just tax the rich, they can afford it. On the other side, my clients, who are the ones taking the risks, writing the payroll checks, and deciding whether to expand, move, or simply shut down. That front row seat is why I'm worried, not for the wealthy, but for everyone who depends on them for jobs and opportunities. Let's start with what's happening nationally. We're seeing a wave of policies specifically aimed at the rich. In Seattle, voters approved a new 5% payroll tax on excess compensation. If an employee working in Seattle makes over $1 million a year, their employers pay a 5% tax on everything above that. The money is earmarked for things like social housing. At the state level, Washington is now moving towards a 9.9% millionaire's tax on income over $1 million per household. It's being sold as the state's first real income tax, narrowly targeted at high earners to plug budget gaps and fund public programs. California is moving a billionaire tax towards the 2026 ballot, a one-time 5% wealth tax on billionaires' global wealth paid over 5 years. Again, the message is this. This is how we pay for more benefits without touching everyone else. So this isn't just a close a loophole here, tweak a rate there. These are explicit, high-profile moves that say, we're going after the wealthy. New York might be the clearest example of this attack on the rich. New York City's current leadership ran and won on openly redistributive democratic socialist messaging. Their platform is simple. New York is unequal, and the way to fix that is to tax the rich more, regulate more, and use government power to reshape economic outcomes. We've already seen proposals to increase taxes on high earners and corporations, all branded as tax-the-rich initiatives, promoted literally on tax day. At the same time, New York's unemployment rate is running higher than the national average, about the mid-4% range statewide, and just under 5% in New York City metro area as of this last spring. My point isn't that taxes caused every job issue in New York, but when you're already struggling to keep people employed and downtown's vibrant, adopting a we're coming for you posture towards the very people who fund payroll and invest in buildings is risky. San Francisco is what happens when hostile or chaotic policy meet on the ground disorder. Over the last few years, big names, Nordstrom's, Whole Foods, Office Depot, H&M, and others have shut down locations in the city, explicitly citing crime, shoplifting, and safety concerns. Walgreens has closed multiple stores, Target cut hours just in San Francisco, because retail theft was so bad. In neighborhoods like the Tenderloin in Castro, Business owners have talked about the area being on the verge of collapse and even threatened to stop paying city taxes because they feel the city isn't holding up its end of the bargain on public safety. Meanwhile, downtown San Francisco has a staggering office vacancy problem, about 30 million square feet of empty office space and vacancy rates in the 30% plus range. On top of that, the city's tax structure has become more complex and heavier at the top. Recent ballot measures have raised and reshaped gross receipt taxes, homelessness surcharges, and special taxes focused on larger and higher margin businesses. Think about what that signals. If you're small, we'll exempt you. If you're big, we'll tax you more and layer on social obligations. Combine that with crime and disorder, and you get what we're seeing. Businesses leaving, jobs disappearing, and a downtown that feels hollowed out. This isn't just an American story. Norway has already experimented with tax-the-rich policies. Norway has a national wealth tax currently around 0.95 to 1.1% for high net worth individuals on top of income and dividend taxes. In recent years, they've also applied a steep exit tax, about 37.8% on unrealized gains above a certain threshold if you leave. After increasing wealth and exit taxes, Norway saw a notable exodus of millionaires and billionaires. Reports estimate that dozens of Norway's richest individuals changed residency, taking significant capital and future tax revenue with them. Norway's political message was, "We'll trade some millionaires for more equality." The lesson is, if you push hard enough, people with options will exercise those options. Now, how does this look from my side of the desk? Here's what I see wealthy clients, business owners, and real estate investors doing in response to these trends. My clients are moving assets into lower tax, more stable states like Texas, Florida, Tennessee, and others with no or low income taxes. They're moving or planning to move as soon as possible their own residency from these high tax states. And they're delaying hiring or expanding in jurisdictions that they feel are hostile or unstable. I have clients who refuse to invest in real estate or businesses in California, New York, and the state of Washington. Some academic studies say that, in aggregate, the number of high earners who move out after taxes is modest. That may be true in the big data, but here's the nuance. The people who move tend to be the most mobile, the most entrepreneurial, and the most heavily invested. They're the ones creating the most jobs, writing the biggest checks, and funding the most projects. When those people leave, the damage is concentrated. Here's the spiral that I'm worried about. First, politicians promise new benefits funded by taxing the rich, wealth taxes, millionaire taxes, surcharges on excess executive pay. Second, a meaningful subset of business owners, investors, and high earners respond by moving their capital, their companies, or themselves to friendlier states or countries. Third, the jurisdiction loses part of its tax base and further investment. You see it in empty offices in San Francisco, in luxury apartments that still sit vacant in New York, and in Norwegian billionaires changing residency. Fourth, as jobs and investments shrink, unemployment and underemployment rise, and more people rely on government safety net programs. Fifth, to keep those programs going, the government either has to cut benefits, politically painful, or raise taxes again, often on a smaller remaining base, which only accelerates the cycle. And here's the key point. The wealthy can afford to leave. The poor usually cannot. When the factory closes, when downtown goes hollow, when the investor decides to build the next project in Dallas instead of San Francisco, the people left behind are the workers, the renters, and the small business owners who depend on that ecosystem. So what is the solution? It's stability, it's competitiveness, and growth. That is the alternative. Look at states like Texas and Florida. They're not perfect, but they've understood a simple point. If you want jobs and growth, you have to be competitive, and stable. They have no state tax on earned income, relatively stable and predictable tax policy, a political culture that generally signals if you build here, we want you here. And what is the result? They've managed to be magnets for people and businesses leaving higher tax states, and they've consistently shown strong population and job growth. Analysis suggests that eliminating or sharply reducing income taxes can boost a state's GDP and new business formation, which raises wages and opportunities over time. That doesn't mean taxes have to be zero. Government needs revenue. To remind you, I am all about a social safety net, having relied on it myself. But there's a big difference between a broad, predictable tax system and one that keeps inventing new special taxes on whatever group is politically unpopular at the time. From my perspective, the solution looks like this. First, keep tax systems broad and relatively simple, instead of constantly adding targeted wealth and millionaire taxes. Second, focus public spending on things that actually support growth, safety, education, areas where private capital wants to be. Third, recognize mobility. In a world where capital and people can move, you cannot treat your job creator as captives. If you care about the poor, and I do, because I've lived that, you need an environment where wealthy people want to invest, not one where they feel like they're under attack. Now, I recognize this isn't my typical discussion about asset protection. However, I feel compelled to share my personal perspective. I grew up poor. Today, I help the wealthy protect what they've built. From that vantage point, I can tell you, when we build policy around resentment of wealth, around tax the rich as a slogan, we end up hurting the very people we say we want to help. Wealthy people, business owners, and investors create jobs by taking real risks with their own capital. When they're treated as partners, they will build. When they're treated as targets, they will move or they stop building. If we want thriving cities, strong safety nets, and real opportunity for the poor, we should be asking, how do we attract more builders and investors? Not, how can we squeeze the few we already have? Thank you for listening. Until next time, stay protected.
You've been listening to the Asset Protection Show, expert strategies by attorney John Skabelund. For more information, go to assetprotectionshow.com.
This content is legal information only and not legal advice. Listening to this content does not create an attorney-client relationship. Mr. Skabelund is admitted to practice law in Arizona, and he may be reached at ultimateassetprotection.com.